Universalist congregation, and we are very thankful and appreciative.
Our reading today is A Strong Reverence for Life by Carol Hepakowski. Those of us who call ourselves religious humanists have a strong reverence for life. Many of us experience a deep sense of awe before the mystery of life and death, those powers greater than ourselves. We share a respect for science and reason, and we are willing to live with ambiguity, to live without definitive answers. We share a deep concern about injustice and the fate of human life, indeed of all life on this planet, our one home in the universe. We identify with the human story, even as we recognize it as intimately tied to the story of the rest of this world. My environmentalism and my humanism are inextricably related. My humanism tells me that human life is important and worthy of respect and care. My environmentalism tells me that to be human is to be part of an interdependent circle of all life. It is counterproductive to imagine ourselves as separate. My knowledge of today's world informs me that planet Earth, and thus human life, are in danger because of the threat of global warming. I want to see life, including human life, preserved and thriving on our planet. My environmental humanism compels me to work to reduce the causes of climate change, the human practices that threaten the survival of life on Earth.
Maggie was playing a little ditty. Is it Let It Be a Dance? So some of you know that song. That's the dance we humans have been doing with our planet, though. Let it be a dance we do. Steal the goodness of the earth for your friends and you. Cut down all the trees and flowers too. Let it be a dance. Na, 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 na. Shame, shame, shame. What on earth have we been about? I came into a spiritual understanding of life some 30 odd years ago, and an Onondaga chief from Orange Lions and I were in deep discussion. And he said, everything the Onondaga do up in central New York, Syracuse area, everything we do, we consider 7 generations before we make a decision. I'm not sure about that because I studied American history, and the Onondaga got into a little trouble with the English and the colonists, but 7 generations. It's a worthy notion, isn't it? Everything we do should be predicated on the notion of how it's going to affect people way down the line. Oh my, that doesn't work with our capitalistic buy it now, throw it away society. All right, so this service this month was about centering ideas and notions. And this service is about centering environmentalism for you individually, for me. Today I wore things that I could wash, no dry cleaning needed. I'm gonna try to get out of the monkey suit that has to be dry cleaned. It makes no sense. I wore shoes that were made from man-made materials because while I've enjoyed a steak and a hamburger and a lamb chop, it's not sustainable to have these creatures on our planet. They are here to serve our eating needs, right? So man-made things, right? Shoes that can be made from recycled tires, right? Things like that. Let me read you what I wrote. And much of what I wrote here was inspired by a sermon that I heard from Dr. Margaret Jonas for Creation Justice Ministries. I found it on the web and I loved it and it was great. So she says, let's take a quick pulse of the room. And I'd like to do that. So I may ask you to raise your hands for a thing or two along the way. How many of you have heard a sermon about climate, the climate emergency, and our moral obligation as people of faith, dare I say, of Unitarian Universalists? How many of you have heard those? Good. How many of you are not paying attention to the climate issues? Good. You know, this climate emergency and ultimately our moral obligation as, I'd say, Unitarian Universalist, but I'd say of anybody that's got a conscience, the moral obligation is real. It's not something you can parse. It's not something I don't know. Today I'm going to drive my SUV 100 miles for no reason, just waste the gas. No. You've got to be thinking. All right. So my job, at least part of it, is to know how many of you lay ministers, because in the Unitarian Universalist faith, there are ordained ministers. You ordained, sister? I'm going to ordain you. I'm a member of the Universalist Church. I can lay hands on you. It could be done. But each are called. Some are called to be ordained ministers who have to follow a particular ethical and moral standard, and we're reviewed regularly. Several UU ministers were kicked out in the last week or two because of bad behaviors. And it cost you over $100,000 to become a UU minister. Serious loss for those folks who acted up, huh? Shame, shame, shame on that. But you lay ministers make up the vast majority of our ministry. Those of you who go out into the highways and byways of this world and have conversations, teachings, and even preachings, because I know there's somebody more like me out there than you might care to admit. And when you get somebody and you corner them, you give it to them. I'm not the only one. I'm not Tigger. I am not the only one. I guess the question is, how does the crisis touch you? How does the death of so many aspects of life on the planet Earth affect you? The fact that we're doing in the bug population and we're doing in the biodiversity top to bottom. How do these things impact your life? How do they intersect with you? It's a question only you can answer. But I'm sure if you put some time to it, you would find out that it's a serious thing. For me, the intersection of this reality is the Trinity in which I live with. Mind is the mind, body, spirit Trinity. That's how I go about my life. As Gordon thinketh, as Gordon feeleth, as Gordon prayeth, or spiritualize things, right? My mind, body, spirit encounter. And when I allow what's happening with this environmental crisis and the lack of climate justice for the largely BIPOC people of the planet, or let's say the economically poor people of the planet, because they are poor white folks. I've been through Appalachia. I've been through parts of California where I've seen poor white folks. They suffering too. It ain't just BIPOC. It's just that BIPOC suffer in a larger way, huh? That's the issue. It intersects with me personally because my dad and half of my family are from Cancer Alley in Louisiana. Between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, petrochemical companies have poisoned the environment. I was at a conference in New Orleans some years back, and we were doing work along the Mississippi River. And as I had my hands down along the bank of the Mississippi, I was shedding tears because I thought about my ancestors who had been slaves on my white relatives' plantation upriver. And I had all these notions about that soil I was laying my hands in. And then I smelled my hands, and the soil smelled hideous. Worse than fecal matter. Huh? The death of fish and other things in the mighty Mississippi. All that mess coming down from upstream, from the Midwest down to New Orleans. And I cried. I cried me a river of tears. I told y'all last week that 3 of my cousins died in an 8-day period. Well, I found out 2 of them from cancer. See, this issue is real for me. It's not something far-flung. I'm from Harlem. Harlem has the second highest asthma rate of any place in New York State because all the highways intersect Harlem. Harlem had 4 bus terminals pumping out diesel fume 24 hours a day. It's not some little fantasy, or I'm some nice middle-class person that can think about these issues when it dawns on me to think about it. It's as real as it gets. I've got asthma. 2 of my children have asthma. My grandbaby's got asthma. Harlem, born and raised, right? So I want to be as real as I can get. The social action team, the social justice team of UUCLV. Karen, raise your hand. Karen's been fighting for Nevada. Did I say it right? Did I say it right? Am I saying it right? Have I been here long enough to say it right? Karen's been fighting the good fight for a whole host of issues for our state, as have some others here. But we can do more, right? And the question is, well, Gordon, you're always asking us to do more. Hell yeah, I'm asking y'all to do more. Yes. Why wouldn't I? The environment is screaming at us. It's begging us to wake up. Listen, being woke about racial issues or the social issues of our time are wonderful. Yeah, get woke. How about get right with Mother Earth? Ain't gonna be no reason to be woke if the earth dies on us. Environmentalism ought to be number one in everybody's mind. Poor folks of Flint, Michigan, and God knows how many other places with horrible water. So I want to be as real as I can get. Right off the bat, it's hard for me, and I think for many others, to engage about the climate emergency. You don't want to be seen as that person. Oh, I know. People run from me. Here he comes. They use a TMI minister. Here he comes. Because I'm going to give you too much information about everything that affects me. Lisa says I'm a great narcissist. I've been to therapy for many years. No therapist ever called me a narcissist. I love too deeply and concerned about each and every person I've ever encountered for this to be all about me. But I am concerned about we. Muhammad Ali had Parkinson's so bad, and I couldn't believe Columbia University, the students asked him to be the guest speaker for their graduation ceremony. And Ali with the Parkinson's so bad got to that pulpit or, well, whatever, lectern. And all he said was, me, we. And the hats were flung in the air. The audience applauded. You see, having the most basic of assumptions that we're in this together makes all the difference to how we go about living our lives. Separate? What separation? What affects one of us ultimately affects all of us. It's just the lack of understanding that's preventing us from taking down the walls that separate us. So I queried my colleagues this week about how many of them give sermons on environmental issues, environmental justice, environmental crises. I sent out an email to 100 of them, 100 UU ministers. I got back some interesting comments. Some of them are afraid to talk about it more than once a year on Earth Day. Yeah, they're afraid. They don't want to be seen as preaching to people who should already know about these things. Listen, as smart as UUs are, we're not the smartest people in America. We wouldn't only be 300,000 strong if we were the smartest darn people in America. Take a seat, UUs. You need to learn more. And it needs to touch you not just in your minds, but in your hearts. It's got to be real for you. That chief that I used to see as a boy on the commercial paddling down the Hudson River and tearing up because the Hudson River was filthy when I was a boy. Trash everywhere. Now you can fish again in the Hudson. The environmental movement made a difference, right? How about this? Some of the ministers said, well, the fear of being ill-informed. These are people with graduate degrees. Look, it's not rocket science to Google climate issues. This isn't like you got to get a PhD in this. You have to read or talk to people in the know. You have to be interested enough to get involved with it. I've shied away from it because I didn't think I had enough information. But I'm not going to be shy anymore. The time is now. Some clergy said to me, the fear of provoking division in the congregation. You know, some of those big givers, the ones that write the big checks, they don't want to hear that. They don't want the finger waved at them. This isn't about waving a finger at anybody. It's about saying, can you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear? Are you aware of what is happening? Another group said, we fear stressing out our listeners. Oh, daily life is so hard anyway. You know, the mostly middle-class people that are Unitarian Universalists, they're just going to fall to pieces if the ministers beat them up. Grow up. Maybe, just maybe, the fear that our members can't handle too much bad news, and I better tone it down. That's what I heard. Tone it down, Gordon. You're too negative. I came back from the summer break with less of a dark shadow spin on the world. I like dark shadows. Barnabas Collins. Anyway, that's a soap opera from long ago for you youngins. I had a cape. It was so cool. I'm the guy that usually talks about race, right? Because race is the primary issue that affects me, or so I believed. In fact, the Pew Research folks found out that 76% of Black folks or African Americans find race to be the primary issue for their lives in America. I trust the Pew folks. I think they do pretty good research. And I know from the folks I've known, yeah, the racial issue haunts them. It's devastating. But when I got down to brass tacks and came to think about it, no, the fact that you've got bad water, bad air, bad food deserts, whatever the problem is in your poor Black community, those environmental issues actually are more pertinent than the darn racial ones. Because race is a made-up concept that hopefully one day we'll dismantle and set aside because it's nonsensical. I've seen white folks and Black folks get organs from each other. It didn't matter. They all work. In fact, some white folks got more booty when they got their skin grafted onto that backside. Huh? Some good Black backsides. No. Anyway, hey. How about this one? This is the last one of them that I'll give you. Maybe we fear that climate preaching isn't pastoral. People come to the UU congregations for solace. What could be more pastoral than a clergy and a congregation saying, we care about the air you breathe, about the water you drink, about whether or not your housing stock was built with environmentally healthy materials? What could be more pastoral than somebody saying the totality of your life experience matters to me? I've been a pastor long years. So no, I'm going to cancel that one. It's vitally important that we do this and talk about it and preach about it and encourage you to preach, teach, and carry that banner everywhere you go. You're dealing with folks that aren't as progressively minded as this room is, right? We all have relatives who are stuck in like the 1950s or something. I loved Happy Days. There were no Negroes, no Latinos. We got one Chinese guy on Happy Days. Oh, wasn't it lovely back then? It just wasn't real. See, my happy days will be, oh, happy day when our Congress and our state legislatures and things actually enact laws that keep us safe. So, climate preaching may require a painful and very personalizing of the conversation, because I wondered this week, how do each of us make these issues more real, more salient in our own lives? What is it we can do? I said to Lisa, I said, oh, I got to get a timer on the shower. I got to stop taking a shower that's too long. And thankfully, our water here is recycled, but still, change the way you do things because it's the right thing to do. What types of purchases are we making, right? What kind of soaps are we using? How often are we on a plane? Plane travel is incredibly bad for the environment, right? Driving a lot is bad for the environment. I know, I'm going to Atlanta, then I'm going to New Orleans, then I'm going to Baton Rouge, then I'm going to Pittsburgh. I got a lot to be shamed about because I'm going to be traveling. But how do we lessen our impact upon Mother Earth? Reckoning with ourselves is difficult. When we admit our own complicity in consumerism, when we don't remain mindful of every act we commit in this life we lead, we've lost an opportunity to do the dance in a good way. May you do the dance you do with environmentalism and concern for others too. May you live a life that's abundant and rich, but in spiritual and friendship, not consumerism. How do we begin to have an ethos of 7 generations out? I wanted you all to be able to share something with me. We've got a few minutes here. In my congregation in Rockland, New York, we did talk back. Was it every week? Or it was multiple weeks a month, because those folks, UUs always, right? UUs have things to say. You're bright, articulate people. Somebody, Kim?
I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that somebody in our congregation sent in an article about the fact the last 20 years have been the hottest on the record. And we posted that on the wall.
Kim told us about an article that one of our members or friends was kind enough to send in.
You wanted to say that?
Did it get posted to our website? Kim? You put it on the wall. So let's see if we can post that to our website. Any other thoughts? And if somebody's got Come on up. Don't be afraid. Come on down. The price is right.
Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking that I've noticed since I've started coming here in the past month or so that right in our break room we have a pile of styrofoam bowls, and we have paper plates, and we have paper cups, and all of these really harmful disposable items that we use to eat our snacks. So I think this is a good time to propose that we make a decision as a fellowship. Just stop purchasing these items. We have plates, we have forks, we could get more. You could even bring your own. You know, that's what I do when I know I'm going to go somewhere and I don't want to use a plastic fork. But in the spirit of that, this might be a good time. I mean, I don't know how these decisions are made or how these things happen, but that's a small thing that we can do that to me seems really important in staying true to what we're professing.
To the values of that seventh principle. Remember what the principle said? Y'all remember what it said? These words are so important, and they get lost in the shuffle of so many words because we're wordsmiths. But respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Come on, my environmental goddess.
Morning. What was just presented to you about the styrofoam is something that we need to do again. I want to let all of you know and remind some of you, many of you, that you should be very proud you're in a church building that was built in 1950 and it's still being cherished and loved and used every week, every day actually. You should be very proud you're sitting in a building that has solar panels on it. You should be proud that you're in a building that has 18 inches of insulating foam roofing on it. Those were not insignificant projects that we, this congregation, has provided for ourselves and for our community. Thank you.
And that's real talk. Thank you, Jane.
If anybody can't afford to switch over, I will not shame you. But if you have the opportunity, any chance you get to choose a vegan meal, not only helps the animals, but helps the environment, helps the wasting of fresh water. If you can afford to choose regeneratively raised meat, that also helps the microbiome of the soil, which helps get carbon out of the atmosphere. So you can choose meat sources that reduce our carbon impact as opposed to add to it.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Robin. I'm very frugal, and in the past I've bought cheap items from China. And a few years ago, I've learned that not only, of course, naturally, we all know it takes fuel to ship things from China to get here, but the fuel they use on those ships is of the lowest quality and is horrific and spews a lot of pollution. So just for me personally, I try not to buy stuff from China anymore if it's going to be on a ship.
Thanks, Robin. One more, and then we'll draw this beginning or this renewed discussion to a close.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to.
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Tawana Houston, and I just wanted to reiterate. Someone had brought up about styrofoam, but I also want to just emphasize just the need to begin to let go of plastics in general. I mean, the impact that it has on the environment, the sea life, and we have just made it so much more convenient to use plastics, but it really is very detrimental to our health as well, because they operate as endocrine disruptors in terms of just a lot of hormone dysregulation, cancer producing, and so forth. And so when we think about things just as simple as bringing our own water bottles as opposed to buying the plastic water bottles, and I get it, like it's also just so much more convenient to have those options, but if we can just be more conscientious of the choices that we're making on a daily basis, of our own grocery bags to the grocery store, how we're bringing plastics into our homes and everything, and just make a different choice as we're out and about of what can we do to reduce. It probably is not going to be eliminated anytime soon, but just as individual choices and what we're doing for our families, just small ways that we can reduce the impact that it has on the environment because of what we're choosing to do. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, doctor. If she'll take me, I'm going to see this doctor. I need some healthy solutions to the environmental damage that's been done to me. Let me close out with this clause that I wrote about building hope by taking action. So how do we maintain hope? That's a question many people have addressed in an anthology that was co-edited by Leah Shade, Rooted and Rising, Voices of Courage in a Time of Climate Crisis. One author, Tim DeChristopher, a Unitarian Universalist who spent 2 years in federal prison after disrupting oil and gas actions in Utah. He said, when someone asked him, "What gives you hope?" Tim replies, How can anything give me hope? He then said, hope is inseparable from our own actions. Again, let me reiterate that. Hope is inseparable from our own actions. He says, hope isn't given, it's grown. He writes, hope is like waiting to act on climate change until someone else picks up and does all the work. We must build chalices upon our hands in the effort to make this world of ours a healthier place. He says, hope never arrives till we get to work. So people, for the blessings of this earth, for the goodness of earth and sky, for the 7 generations that are yet to be born, for our own lives, take action. Amen. Amen. Thank you for those of you who participate.